women are socialized to appear as perfect and productive. And, historically, women were valued for how we nurture and how we look. And
Mm.
so we know that that's still the case. But now we're also dealing with, we're also valued for how productive we are and how perfect we are. And so you're absolutely right. Women are pressured. They feel this external pressure to perform and be perfect in all the areas. We're asked to parent like we don't have jobs and work like we don't have kids. And it's an impossible conflict that is just, the most terrifying thing that you go through as a new parent who's building their career.
Welcome to Narrative's Leadership Story Talks, where great leaders go beyond the bottom line to create lasting impact. Join hosts Jerome DeRoy and Julianne Ryan as they uncover the stories behind real-world challenges, offering practical insights to help you lead with empathy, authenticity, and purpose. Each episode dives into how leaders use storytelling to build trust, foster connection, and inspire action. Whether you're navigating workplace dynamics, driving change, or building high-performing teams.
Welcome to Leadership Story Talks. I'm Jerome DeRoy, CEO of Narrative.
And I'm Julianne B. Ryan, and it's great to be here.
Wonderful to see you again, Julianne, as always. So before we move on to introducing our guest, I just want to remind our listeners, as usual, to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. That allows you to get the new episodes in your feed directly, so you're sure to not miss one. Leave a review if you would like to, and check out our YouTube channel as well. We always post both as a podcast and on our YouTube channel. And you can always go to narrative.com, narrativ.com/podcast to find our archive of more than 180 episodes and many other resources that you'll hear about during this episode as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest today, Giovanna Rossi, who's a public affairs strategist and leadership coach working at the intersection of systems change and human well-being. She holds a Master's of Science in Public Policy from the London School of Economics. She's the owner and CEO of Collective Action Strategies, a consulting firm supporting mission-driven organizations to influence policy, engage stakeholders, and communicate effectively across sectors. Giovanna is the creator and host of The Well Woman Show, which is an NPR broadcast program and leadership platform that amplifies women's voices. Through her Well Woman Life programs, she helps leaders make an impact without burnout by blending systems thinking and evidence-based well-being practices. She also founded and serves as board president of Family Friendly New Mexico, a statewide nonprofit that helps employers implement workplace policies that strengthen workforce retention, support family well-being, and improve economic outcomes. On a personal note, she's a mom, a wife, and proud daughter of Scottish and Italian immigrants, and brings her heritage of resilience, community, and care into her work. Welcome, Giovanna.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Wonderful.
I'm so happy to showcase another wonderful New Mexican, my home state. So it's always great when that happens. So thanks so much for being on the show. I want to kick things off the way we always do, which is the same question we ask of all of our guests. So we'll ask you now. What is an experience that has shaped who you are today? Something that still influences you or informs you in some way?
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show. I guess I would just say the experience, so many experiences that have shaped me and who I am, but the one I think that has really kind of framed how I operate in the world and how I see the world is really my mom. The specific experience was sitting in the audience as a 9-year-old, a fourth grader, watching my mom walk across the stage to get her diploma. And yeah, just like, that's just kind of the epitome of sort of, a whole lot in my childhood and growing up with a single mom who worked multiple jobs and put herself through college after, already having kids, and just seeing her strength and resilience. And, watching her make our furniture because we didn't have money to go buy furniture to furnish our house. And she was by no means like a crafty person or like like a woodworker at all. She's very artistic and creative and wonderful. But so to see her build this furniture was like, wow, okay. And we all helped,
Mm,
and but anyway, yeah, I would say, just that moment, I look back on that moment of sitting in the audience, watching her cross the stage and get that diploma as a sort
mm.
of really defining moment in my life.
Yeah, beautiful answer. Thank you so much. Yeah, we always. Sorry, go ahead, Jules.
Yeah, thank you. Just because the couple of words came to mind when you were saying this. She was a problem solver.
Mm,
Showed displayed incredible resilience and goal settings and visionary for all of you. And as you were speaking it, I was thinking about a graduation I sat in last year where there were a lot of non-traditional students attending. And I remember two kids yelling in the audience, "That's my mom," when they hit the stage. So you did you learned a lot of lessons there, and all you did. So what an incredible story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add that I watched her work so hard for it too, right? Like
mm,
she sacrificed a lot. And there were times where she was like, I'm studying and the door was closed and we got our own, snack or whatever. Um, but just also noticing how, like not having the language for it at the time, but like looking back and seeing a lot of my work coming from the systems that really didn't support her,
mm,
and looking at her individual resilience in spite of the systems that didn't
mm,
support her, and also just watching her parent, like she had to parent as if she um didn't have a job, and then she had to work like she didn't have kids, and it's that conflict that has been just the central narrative of my work now for so many years.
mm. Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting how you can draw a line from that experience that you told us about, right up to what you're doing. And so I'd love to maybe follow that up with, I read your bio at the beginning, and obviously there's a lot of different strands there,
Mm.
but there seems to be, as you just said now, this kind of connection around systems change and families and women and mothers maybe in particular as well. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about what your journey's been professionally in terms of getting to that place of trying to make these systems better for some of the people who for whom the systems were really not designed.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, whenever I talk to younger women or just mentoring and we talk about career, it's like it's never a straight line, right? Like
Mm.
there's I didn't grow up thinking, oh, someday I'm going to work on systems change. Um, or even like I'm going to host a radio show about women and leaders. So the way we get to that point is often a squiggly line, right? But I think what ties everything together, and it's so funny hearing you read my bio, I'm like, wow, I'm exhausted just listening to that. That's a lot. But it does all tie together. In that in that my background professionally is in women's health and rights.
Mhm.
And um when I was working for the governor of our state as the women's health policy advisor, and I was professionally trying to impact economic security for women and families as a policy. Uh, but I was also living that as my own experience as a new mom,
Mhm.
and trying to understand how I was going to continue the trajectory of my career in light of also being a mother and wanting to raise my child, and there was just an inherent conflict there, and so I was both working on it personally and professionally, and it kind of just all came together in terms of the systems that I saw that needed to really be impacted, and then the way I thought I could really tell that story was through the radio show and the podcast,
Mm.
and and then I started my own business doing the public affairs and strategy. And so it just all kind of came together. But the common thread is um, improving the lives of women and families. And
Mhm.
if I can do that in various different ways through policy, through workplaces, and through supporting women leaders, then I think we get a little closer to the goal.
Yeah.
Is there a person that comes to mind that was a client or someone you see you smiling, even though we're separated by a country, we're on the same page.
So I
Like,
was gonna
sorry, I
I'm
got it
glad you took
first.
it.
That impacted you. Like it's like this template we carry, this one person, this one conversation we had, or this one process you did that made a difference and it really started you thinking or saying this is possible.
Mm.
Gosh, there've been so many, and I think, uh, early on um, in my career, as I started in policy, I was working at the legislature as a policy analyst and also tracking, campaign contributions and seeing how campaign contributions impacted votes. And, um, and so I think just I don't know, there've been so many moments that have, shaped kind of why I pursued what I pursued. But you're asking if there's, like, a specific moment or
Yeah, yeah. Some of the
story?
like someone you always keep in your mind, or or a face or a family that you said, I know this impacted this
Right.
group or
An
these
example of
individuals.
impact, really.
Mhm.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, um, at the policy level, you're a little bit detached from real people,
Mm.
which is unfortunate, which is why, it's so important to tell stories, and which is why I wanted to talk to women leaders individually, for my radio show to get
Mm.
those, stories of actual women. And I will say, there have been so many women that I've worked with, but one in particular who was struggling to succeed in her career while taking care of her elderly mother. And I think she also had kids. And so she was doing a lot of caregiving, her caregiving role and her career role, and was just really stuck. And when I told her what we were doing at a policy level to impact some of the systems that she works within and lives within, I just saw a kind of
Mm,
light go off, and she connected like, "Oh, okay, some people are out there trying to make an
Mm.
impact and help my situation." And so I do think of her, and she really is, um, sort of the person that I think about when I do my work.
mhm.
Mm.
Um, and, and when I look around, I'll give you another example, and this is more of a women's leadership example. But in in a lot of the policy work that I've done, I got to the point where I was like, okay, we can throw millions of dollars at an issue, at a problem. And, for example, we were trying to improve breastfeeding rates among a certain population. And what I saw was that women leaders who were engaged in that work, in trying to make that happen, they were burning out and getting kind of squashed by the systems that they were working in.
Hmm.
And that was a real moment for me where I was like, okay, we can do budget all of this money, we can create all these programs, but if the people who are implementing this can't succeed because they themselves are in overwhelm and burnout, then we have a real problem.
Mm.
And that's when I really started focusing on those women leaders and supporting them
Hmm.
um, to address that kind of burnout.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for those examples. And I was, I also saw that in your bio, the subject of burnout very specifically. And I'm just wondering for someone like you, who, I mean, you even said, to us now that bio's a lot. Both personally and professionally, you're clearly juggling a lot. how do you, and maybe this is something you've learned along the way, but I'm always curious with people like yourself who have so many things that you're doing and clearly having so much impact at a very high level. How do you make decisions about where to focus at any given moment in terms of your energy? When
Mm.
I'm sure everything must feel super important, right? So I don't know
Yes.
how do you do that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think the first thing I'll say is when my values are aligned with my actions,
Mm,
I'm in a state of ease and flow, right? Like it's not hard. It's not draining. I find,
mm,
and I work with other women leaders on this. Usually, when we're overwhelmed and in burnout and like frazzled with what should I do, um, usually we can dig down and find where our actions, what we're doing, is not aligned with our values, and so that's the starting point. But I
mhm,
will also say that usually burnout and overwhelm is very much tied to other people's urgent items.
Mm. It's
So,
true.
especially as a caregiver, whether you've got kids or parents that you're looking after, or pets or neighbors, whatever, if you're a caregiver and a nurturer, um, a lot of your stress and your work is invisible. That's the invisible workload that we hear about.
mhm,
And it's also tied to other people's urgent things. So, what I teach in the Well Woman framework is a way of looking at that and deciphering, okay, what's urgent and what's my urgent items? What are my urgent things? And then what are other people's urgent things? And
mm,
what's important? And, if you have urgent and important things, then you probably need to address those because they're important and there's some sort of urgency around it.
mhm,
If they're urgent items and not important, then it's pretty much, wasting your time and draining you. And so there's a
mhm,
framework that we work through to figure out some of those things. And it's actually a daily practice. And so your question of like, how do you decide what to focus on? I've internalized that practice now. I can do it like, without walking through the worksheet. Um, but it is a practice, and I look at that very carefully now. And I'm also at a place in my career where I'm kind of not trying to prove anything anymore. Like I
right.
feel like we spend a lot of time early in our career, like, oh, I have got to prove that I can do this, and now I'm at a point where I'm, like, pretty confident that I can do it, and, uh, and so now it's about really being selective and really aligning with my values as
Mm,
far as where I put my energy and attention and
hmm.
resources.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting that you mentioned the word, or that where you start is making sure that your values are aligning with your actions, because that's something that in our practice of storytelling, that's also a starting point where we ask people to sort of look at the values that are most important to them, and then how would they want to communicate about those. So, in other words, what are the stories that we can now help you excavate,
Mm,
craft, and tell so that it's not just any story you're telling, but it's the story that actually really aligns with your values so that someone can say, oh, I get that, your value is family or resilience or courage, whatever those are. So it's always interesting to me. We were talking to someone else on the podcast recently who talked about values-based leadership and how as an organization that's what they were implementing. But we use these words like values so often that sometimes they become kind of meaningless. We sort of wonder what are values. And but I love that you tied it to something very concrete. I make decisions according to whether these values are aligned with my actions, and if they're not, then I know it's not important, right? That's helpful, I think, to people because there's so many times we've done work on ourselves around our values and then it kind of ends up in a drawer somewhere or maybe there's a post-it with those few words on it and maybe that's a good reminders, but I love it that you're tying it to something quite concrete. And so I guess my question would be, in terms of the women framework, Does that sort of happen in group settings? Do you do sort of one-on-one coaching with people? How does that work?
Yeah, I do group coaching. I have a group coaching program called the Well Woman Academy, and part of that program, people do get one-on-one sessions, so it's included. But
Mm,
so I do both. Definitely,
yeah.
there's power in working in a group, and I hear that all the time from
Mm,
the women that I work with. And actually, it's one of the questions I ask women leaders when I interview people, um, about, well, what kinds of things support them, and community and being in group and in relationship always is in the top three.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I definitely do that. And my first and foremost, I'm a public affairs nerd, right? Like I'm a policy person, but I added on the Well Woman framework and the show and everything, almost as a way to do my life. Like I needed it, right? And that's kind of
Right.
what we hear in business, is that we create what we need in the world. And so I definitely did that. I'm like, I'm my ideal client.
I was gonna say, it's just like that's what happens.
Yeah. And I would love to say that I have, totally figured it out and it's like awesome all the time. But of course it's not. It's a process. It's a continuous learning cycle, and that's part of what we work with in the Well Woman Academy.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and another word that came to mind of why your podcast and your community that you're building is important. When when we coach, I hear a lot of women apologizing and not being enough, not doing enough, can't do everything, and also having to approach major life incidents or activities in a stealth manner. I have
Mhm.
elder care over here, I have kids over here, but I'm supposed to present as this perfect entity with no ripples and no challenges outside of this framework. And it puts an enormous amount of pressure on the female, particularly.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And that's, part of what we address in the work that I do with women.
Mm,
Women are socialized to appear as perfect and productive. And, historically, women were valued for how we nurture and how we look. And
mm,
so we know that the, that's still the case. But now we're also dealing with, we're also valued for how productive we are and how perfect we are. And women are socialized to appear as perfect and productive. And, historically, women were valued for how we nurture and how we look. And
mm,
so we know that the, that's still the case. But now we're also dealing with, we're also valued for how productive we are and how perfect we are. And so you're absolutely right. Women are pressured. They feel this external pressure to perform and be perfect in all the areas. And that goes back to a comment I made earlier, where we're sort of asked to parent like we don't have jobs and work like we don't have kids. And it's an impossible conflict that is just, the most terrifying thing that you go through as a new parent
mm,
who's building their career. So yeah, we definitely address that, and there are some tools and things that we work with to to make sure that women are reclaiming their ability to say, you know, this is what I'm doing and this is good enough. And actually, other people are not being asked to perform at this level. And so just kind of reclaiming that ability to take a breath and say, this
mm.
this this is enough.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering whether at this point in time, there's something on the horizon that you're kind of looking forward to in terms of, reaching a specific goal for a specific system to change, or maybe it's not that simple in terms of addressing these things. But I wonder if you've sort of seen, okay, we've made a lot of progress over here. now we're kind of starting to turn our attention to this other thing that is promising, but still needs a lot of work. Is there anything like that for you on the horizon?
I mean, I continue to be really focused on supporting women to lead in their lives so that they can make the impact that is necessary to change the things that need to be changed. Because I really think we're in a obviously a pretty challenging time in our communities and in our country and in the world. And I do believe that it is busy women who already have a full plate who are going to be impacting
Mm.
those things that need to change the most. Um, and so ask a busy woman to do something and it'll get done.
Absolutely.
It'll get done for
Um,
sure.
so I think what I see is a continuing to look at workplace policy so that women feel supported at work and they don't have to choose between, going to the parent teacher conference and making money to put food on the table. And I see that growing. I mean, when I started this work 15 years ago, people really weren't talking about that, like how to really change the workplace culture so that women could thrive, women and families. And so I see that changing. We have some incredible opportunities at a national level to roll out the Family Friendly Business Award and work with companies across the country. So I see that as a fun, next phase. Um, and so, yeah, and probably a whole lot of other things, but I'll leave it there.
Very good. Well, actually, on that note, I'd love to ask you if there's anything else that you want to leave with our audience. We've had some great insights from you and very practical examples as well. And I'm sure people are taking a lot away from this, and we'll have lots of notes as well going with the episode and links. But if there's anything that you want to highlight right now before we wrap up, the floor is yours.
No, thank you. Well, I talked about the Well Woman Academy. I think, for folks, if they want to get involved in this work, reach out to me. A great way to really see the power of the Well Woman framework is to do our quiz, which is wellwomanlife.com/quiz. It's a
Mm,
very um, short little quiz that tells you where you are in the Well Woman framework and what you
Hmm.
can do next. Because everybody's at slightly different stage.
mm,
And so I would start there if you are in transition, in overwhelm, in burnout, and you are a caregiver and you are trying to make an impact in the world, right? That's the those are the folks that I can really support the best. Um, People who are really, really concerned about their communities, they're already working in some field that's making an impact or they're trying to make an impact and they've got this caregiving role. And so they're probably overwhelmed and in burnout
Hmm.
or in transition.
mm.
And so if that's you, I definitely would invite you to come and check out that quiz.
Terrific.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, this has been a real pleasure. I wish we could go on for longer, but that's the time we've got for today. And yeah, just really want to thank you again, Giovanna, for coming onto the show and answering our questions. It's been great.
Thank you so much. It's been really a great pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Jules, of course, for being my
Thank
wonderful
you.
co-host as always. And I want to thank our listeners for listening to us and watching us on YouTube as well. We really appreciate your support. If you've been inspired by this session or want to look for more of those resources that Giovanna talked about, definitely check out those episode notes. If you would like to learn more about how to tell your own story, as we mentioned a little bit on this podcast as well, in terms of aligning those values with your stories and how do you sort of show that through storytelling, you can consider enrolling yourself in one of our programs, whether that's a team workshop, a group workshop, or one-on-one training. We have a lot of different options available. So all you have to do is go to narrative.com, narrativ.com, and get in touch with us. There's a very easy contact form to use. And we've got a few different innovations going on at the same time. So definitely go check us out and check out the episode notes for more on that. As always, I want to thank everyone for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Check out our YouTube page. All of this drives word of mouth, so we
We'll
don't
keep you
miss.
busy.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to miss the opportunity to hear the wisdom of people like Giovanna Rossi. So thank you so much. And until next time, goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.